I think the space, wherever you are, has a big impact on how you feel. I mean, that's kind of why we chose this space here. You know, we always try to choose spaces that are unique. At least when we make a record, we always want the space to be, just to give us something, you know, spiritually. Because I feel like when you get older spaces like this, you start dealing with ghosts, you know, and so much energy of past events and stuff that have happened in a place that to me is a real tangible thing. Yeah, there's lots of those places. Well, I mean, like Preservation Hall itself, we've done so much stuff with the Preservation Hall Jazz Band. Like, that room is just, I mean, you can't even, like, I feel like if it was Ghostbusters or something and you had their ghost reading frequency tool or whatever and you took it in Preservation Hall, it would explode, you know, it would just be like, and that place is just so, I mean, when you walk in there, you can hardly breathe with the ghosts and the spirit in the air in that place. I'd say maybe that place for me is, because that for us as a show was, I mean, definitely top 5 most peacefully spiritual experiences playing live together. The concert experience is a two-way street, you know, like we always really try to stress that, because if people, like when we play to a group of people who don't like us or have never heard of us, the concert is really hard because nobody's giving us anything. They're sitting there going. But if you're playing for people who know your music or are fans of your music, or people who don't know you but are into it and giving you a chance or whatever, you know, it is this transcendent experience for us. And I like to think of, you know, the person in the crowd with their eyes closed and they're gone, you know, nothing remains of them. At that moment in time, my spirit is in the air and their spirit is in the air, and they aren't a person. And you know what I mean? Like their body is there physically on the ground, but that is of no concern at that moment in time. You know, if you let yourself get lost in the music, and if concerts aren't just a fashion show or a social event that they are for so many people, you know, I feel like for a lot of people, a concert is like, and it is a social event, but it turns into this thing where it's like the social event and the fashion show aspect of it is more important to a lot of people than transcending, you know, and finding some real spiritual awakening within music, which I feel like, you know, is kind of our higher calling. I was lucky enough to see Tony Bennett here in Louisville at the Kentucky Center for the Arts probably about 6 months ago or 5 months ago, and he's 85 now. I had never seen him before, and he came out and was, I mean, 85 years old. His voice was unbelievably fresh and unbelievably new, and his spirit, like he looked like a 30-year-old man in his prime. You know, like the way he carried himself, the respect that he gave to the audience and the graciousness that he gave, you know, was like just unbelievable, you know, because he's Tony Bennett. He could be stuck up and he could be like, Louisville, Kentucky, who cares about these hicks? You know, like he could come off with that attitude that a lot of people do bring, you know, like a lot of people come through here and they think they're bigger than this or bigger than that. But to see a guy like Tony Bennett, I'll never forget them turning off the PA, and they turned off all the lights and they shone one spotlight on Tony Bennett in the middle of the stage, and he sang Fly Me to the Moon a cappella, you know, with no sound system. And I was just like, that's my hero. I think the only goal we really had was making it a live record, like trying to find an environment that would work for us to capture it all live, because I was really kind of hell-bent on capturing the vocal live too, like the main vocal for each song. We just wanted to make it a very limited atmosphere. I mean, there was no AC, no computers, no internet, a lot of the modern comforts and things that you have in a normal studio, there were none of those. And we just, you know, brought in some good mics, brought in a tape machine, brought in some decent gear, and just set up to have a good time. Because I think we've always been fans of unconventional recording studios, because you have to solve your own problems, and the way the room is set up gives you a unique sound. Because when you go into a professional recording studio, they've solved all the problems for you ahead of time. Like any problem you run into, they've got a solution for it immediately. Whereas when you're in some gymnasium and something breaks or you encounter some sound problem, you have to
figure it out yourself.
Yeah, you've got to figure out all the stuff yourself.
That was the most fun. It was like an adventure every time something came up. Like, God, what are we going to do about the drums? Because it's huge, tall ceiling. I don't know how tall the ceilings were, 40 feet or something like that. And then having to buy like a tailgating tent and then put sleeping bags on top of it and comforters. And, you know, it was just a fun adventure every day was something new. How are we going to make this room work to capture everything all at the same time? Mm-hmm. And for there to be just the right amount of bleed that is kind of that magical place.
Part of what we wanted to do was make it like some of our favorite records from the big band era, or times when you had to capture a lot of people playing, and that back then they just didn't have any choice. That was just the technology. You know, you didn't have computers, you didn't have even multi-track tape machines. So we wanted to romantically not make a retro sounding record at all, but make a record where your brain vision when you hear the record is the band in a room, you know, including the singer, and you kind of get the sense that I'm listening to a performance in a room, you know. And so we needed to find a room that would give us the ambience that we needed to get that sound. But then, like Tom was saying, like there's all these obstacles that come up with that. Like there's too much guitar amp bleeding into the drums, or there's too much drums bleeding into the piano, and then you get into the whole Boy Scout camp of it all, push amps into the bathroom and cover them in blankets. You know, you're just doing all these kind of missions to solve all these problems that you have. For black metal, those are some friends of ours that are all in their own bands here in Louisville, that we gathered, nine girls that are all buddies of ours. That whole idea just popped in my head when I was out in LA working on another project, and I had bought this Thai pop compilation from the 60s of lost Thai pop songs. I was driving around in my rental car, and this song came on that was the inspiration for that Holding On to Black Metal song. And it was just kind of like I went into a trance. I just hit the repeat button and listened to that song for like a week. Just by being alive and making music, we're part of a conversation. You know, when people look back on the 2000s or whatever this era is going to be called, there's so many great people making great music right now. Just to be a part of that at all, I feel like is an honor. But at the same time, I don't feel like we subscribe to anything. You know, I mean, anybody can listen to our music and say, I hear shades of this, or I hear shades of that, or shades of that. But I don't feel like there's ever. We're just all.
We're fans of so many different kinds of music and different eras. Yeah, I don't feel like there's one that would really describe us or some kind of movement.